not interested in any kind of nostalgic notions of the past, but we are interested in history and thinking about history critically as we move forward, but with a deep concentration in the present. The future is impossible to predict, and every time you try to predict the future, you get it wrong. Being an architect allowed me to focus in on these kinds of topics that we sleepwalk through. And architecture was more than just an aesthetic object. It was about potentially changing the way people behave. Time is really, really difficult for the architect, and the conventions of architecture are to make buildings that last, to make them enduring and to make them classical. So the notion of the classic is somehow embedded in the discipline of architecture. This is particularly problematic when thinking about the Contemporary Museum, for example. The meaning of art has changed and continues to evolve. So how do you make a building for a subject that is, by definition, always changing? And architecture is always fixed. It's fixed in space, it's fixed in time, it's fixed in the moment that you had that idea, and it's taken 5 years to fruition, and all of a sudden, is that idea relevant anymore? As we started to take apart the conventions of the museum, we began to realize that a lot of those conventions are exactly what they are. They're just conventions, they're norms, and they needed to be rethought. In that way, we often think about our museums still going to be around in 10, 20, 30, 50 years. Does the museum mean the same thing? Are there different words to explain a place that's a repository of art, but where art is shared and art is exchanged between the public and the audience and the artist? I was involved in a kind of exchange with a large group of people, architects and engineers, where the question was posed: if you could step into the future 100 years away, or you can step back 100 years in the past for one day, which would you take? And with 100 architects and engineers, I think something like 98 chose to go to the past, and I chose to go to the future.